Alrighty, so I'm here with Sarah Bauling, different surname, same family, and my sister. Hey Sarah, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. An absolute privilege and pleasure to be here.
Cool, man. Hey, so let's start off. Do you want to tell everybody, give them a bit of context? What were you doing this morning? What were you here? Why did you fly up from Sydney to Cairns? And what were you doing this morning?
Well, I'd love to say I came just for you. Of course, that is a bonus. However, the reason I was here is I'm part of a networking group. It's an international networking group. And today I was asked to do a 3-hour workshop specifically on how to create, craft and deliver a powerful 45-second pitch.
Cool. So for everybody listening or watching, what is a pitch? Because people often think of pitches when I'm trying to sell something, but that's not necessarily always the case. So do you want to tell us what a pitch is and sort of how that works?
Absolutely. So you're exactly right. People often think a pitch is a thing where you go, hey, this is what I do, give me your money. And it absolutely is not that, perhaps in the old days. But in terms of our current landscape, a pitch is something that I always say is something that starts a conversation. Once a conversation starts is where you start building your trust, you start building rapport, and ultimately that's when you start spending money. So you get different types of pitches. For example, in networking, you may be asked to stand up and deliver, so it's really structured, stand up and deliver a 30 or a 40-second pitch. So that's really structured. You want to make sure that you're getting up, you're delivering a really powerful pitch that really outlines what you do. It's a succinct message with a really clear call to action.
And so basically you've got the floor. There's nobody else talking. Everybody's looking at you. The lights on you. Deliver. It's structured. There's a point to it. It's expected.
It is expected, 100%, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first type of pitch. The second type of pitch could be in more of a casual setting, and that could be at a business event, it could be a casual networking event, or it could be at a barbecue, or it could just be at the side of your kid's sports field where someone goes, hey, what do you do?
Oh my gosh,
right?
So that's like a loaded question, right? Because sometimes you say, like, you're almost scared to ask, because when you say that, like, what do you do? And sometimes people do it really well. They'll just tell you a little bit. And then other times they're like taking this deep breath and they go, and you're like, oh no. And it's almost like they throw up over you. Like they just keep on talking and talking and talking. That's not a pitch.
That's not a pitch.
That's an
yeah. That's where you've got someone captive. So basically you've got those pitches where you've got, let's say, a couple of seconds to get their attention, and one of two things happen. Either the other person goes, oh gosh, that's lovely, which means that they're really not interested.
It's lovely, and look, the sun's shining, or, oh, is that hors d'oeuvres? Or, oh, sorry, I've got to go, yeah?
Correct.
Yeah, right.
And what that does is it gives you as the person who's just delivered this 5 or 10 second pitch the opportunity to move on to perhaps a better conversation, or alternatively realize, hey, this person isn't interested, we're not going to go there. We may be talking about other things that are not perhaps business related.
Okay, so can we go back one step? So
Absolutely.
so in that situation, quite often somebody might go, oh, what do you do? And they go, oh, I'm a builder. And they go, is that all I say? Or other times people go, oh, I'm a builder, and then they talk for the next half an hour about shit that you're not interested in.
Correct.
So there's definitely a correct way of doing it.
There's definitely a middle ground, and
Okay.
we want to get that middle ground. And again, the reason why we want to get that middle ground is if they're not interested, it's okay. Because not everyone's buying what you're putting down.
Yep.
The second thing is you want to be in a position where where interest is created, and you're on the right track when they go, oh wow, that sounds amazing, or that sounds interesting, tell me more. And the tell me more might be, oh, I've actually got a question, as an example. So here you're then able to go into a conversation as opposed to, as you were saying, throwing up over someone. You're able to go into a decent conversation, which is where you can build the trust and rapport. So
let's go for an example, right? Let's just imagine I am a builder and my name happens to be Bob. Mm-hmm. Right. How would Bob the builder, if he was asked that question, and you're going to have to make some assumptions here.
Yes.
What would be a good way for Bob the builder to answer, so what do you do?
Okay, so we use a system called name, same, and fame. So I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to share that with your listeners because it's super simple and everyone and anyone can apply it and you can create it right now, right in this very moment.
Cool, let's do it.
So let's do it. So the first thing is your name. Hopefully you know your name.
Bob's got that one covered.
Bob's got that one covered.
Yep.
Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is the same. So in other words, are you a butcher? Are you a baker? Are you a candlestick maker? In other words, what is the thing when you say it, people know exactly what it is?
They can put you into a box.
Put you in, and the box needs to be very clear. I'm a hairdresser, I'm a speaking coach, I'm a business coach, I'm a landscaper, whatever it is. So we've got Bob the builder.
Yep, cool. Tick, tick.
Tick, tick, that's the easy bit. Now the fame is what makes you different, or what is the thing that people remember you by, or what do you do, Bob, when you're a builder?
Yeah.
So as an example, mine would be, my name is Sarah. I'm a professional speaking coach, and I help you take your pitch from blah to brilliant.
Cool.
The end, right?
The end. So then I can either go, oh, look, the sky's blue today, or I can go, oh, that's interesting, tell me more.
Correct.
And if I don't ask that, then chances are I'm most probably not interested in a professional speaking coach, and we'll discuss why people should be. But then also it gives you the opportunity to go, oh, what do you do? Or what I don't like that question, what do you do? Because if a lot of people can't answer that question correctly. So sometimes an easy way to engage in a conversation is, hey, hi, what's your name? Sarah. Sarah, what do you do for fun? And it's just a lighter, easier way of getting into it, as in like, what do you do? Are you worth my time? Shall we speak? It's can be a bit cringy.
And I think it also depends on the actual environment,
Yes.
because at a business event, I don't necessarily want to talk about my fun because we're there to do business, right?
Yeah.
If we're at a social event, what do you do for fun? That's a way more interesting question as opposed to, well, I'm an accountant and I'm very, very formal and, that's what we do. I'm a lawyer. Keep your mouth shut. So again, you want to have different names, sames and fames so that you can use them dependent on what your audience is or where you are.
You know what I find is interesting, right? Like when we grew up, so our parents had a hot air ballooning business. And it was always easy because like you could just, people go, oh, what do you do or whatever? Oh, yeah, we do hot air ballooning. And then the conversation would just flow from there to the point almost where when people asked you what you did, you didn't want to say what you did because, or people would go, oh, yeah, I run a horse safari operation. And they'd go, oh, I rode a horse once. And you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah, we went to the Drakensberg and I got on this horse and I'm like, oh, let me tell the rest of the story. So this horse was like a real nag and used to walk really, really slowly. And then you got to turn around and come back and the horse would gallop back, stop the thing and you fell off. And they're like, oh, you rode that horse as well? And it's like, no, that's every story. But when you Bob the builder or Sam the business coach, people are like, it's not that interesting. But if you can tell people what you're famous for, then people are interested. And then that you can then decide whether you're going to engage further with that or whether they just want to change conversation. And both the results are actually good.
100%. There's also something else in there, and that's the thing that we should never actually ignore. Is, for example, someone may not necessarily need you. I may not need you. However, if you've introduced yourself in a way that is strong and powerful and catchy as well, it might mean like, oh, I don't need a business coach. But you talk about getting the work, doing the work, and keeping the cash. I know someone who needs that. So again, we never want to waste the opportunity of a short introduction.
Without it sounding salesy, it's just what do you do? Because somebody's always, what do you do? So then somebody might say, hey, that cute blonde over there with a bow in her hair, what does she do? And I'm maybe haven't been listening. I go, she's like a speaking coach or something. She helps people. So I can remember blah too. Brilliant. So it's memorable. And if somebody points you out and asks what you do, it's more likely for me to remember.
Correct.
So that's where the fame comes in. The fame is quite important. It's not boasting. So don't be Texan. Don't be Australian because Australians always underplay everything. Maybe be a bit South African. Can we say that?
I don't know. Can we say it?
Oh, yeah. Lacquer, bro. So it's around famous, but without boasting, but just so that it's memorable.
Correct. And the great thing about that as well is when other people join the conversation, because again, you can be at a networking event and you and I are having a conversation and then someone else joins. They're like, hey, what do you do? And if you keep saying the same thing, it's like, oh my goodness gracious, I've heard this 1,000 times. You can have, I take your pitch from terrifying to terrific.
Okay, but for people listening to us today, right, like step one would just be go name, same, fame.
Correct, pick one.
And pick one and do it a couple of times so it feels okay.
You get comfy with it.
You get comfy with it. Yeah,
so that the verbiage feels easy. That when someone asks, and you don't want to have one, like you don't have to write it out and then, sit in the car and try and remember it. It's short, it's sharp, it's succinct.
Okay, so that's the 10-second pitch that I think particularly if you're a business owner, not necessarily
100%.
As a business owner, you almost have to have this in your arsenal, right? Yeah. If you're an employee or work for somebody, if you're passionate about what you do and you can talk about it, that's great, right? We love having team members or employees that are passionate about what they do because you can bring business into the business. But as a business owner, it's almost like a non-negotiable. You need a way of answering that in a short, succinct, powerful way, memorable way. Okay, so that's the 10-second.
Yeah.
And generally, if you've done that well, there's normally a follow-up question. Ooh, how do you do that? Or tell me more, or whatever the case is.
Yep.
Again, I think that's the point where people need to stop as well and give a little bit more information, not taking that deep breath and go, because as soon as you're talking to anybody and they're taking a deep breath, you're like, oh no.
Ooh, so, it's about to grow roots. Yeah. This is going to get deep and long.
Yeah. So it's around, okay, so what would be the second stage? Can we talk about that?
100%. So there's different things and it depends on how you are as a person, how easily you interact. So some people are super social. The extroverts, they're able to have conversations. Some people may be a little bit shyer or a little bit, people don't always feel confident, and that's okay as well. So if, for example, someone said, oh, tell me more, you would go into a little bit more detail. If you've got any idea of the person in front of you, you may start to tailor it based on, who they are. You may have and I stress the word short, I'm going to say it again, a short story that they can easily relate to. It can't be a lengthy story, else it's like, oh, that's just going on for days.
Yeah.
You want to be able to really relate it. So as an example, you could say, oh, wow, so you work with pitching. That's interesting. Tell me more. I may ask you a question out of curiosity, which is always a great way to start.
Yes, actually, if you say I'm curious, you can almost ask anything and get away with it.
Correct. So I might say, so out of curiosity, do you network on a regular basis? Now, this is really a yes/no question.
Or you could, I'm curious, are you single?
Why on earth would we ask someone that? Oh my gosh. We're absolutely not going there. So as an example, here's my Tinder and my Bumble QR code. So out of curiosity, he's really badly behaved. I'm the good child. He's the bad child. Out of curiosity, do you network on a regular basis? This is a yes/no answer. Yes, I do. Fantastic. So as an example, when you are delivering a pitch in a formal networking environment, do you agree that it's really important your message is clear?
That's a good question because then now you're asking them questions, so they're engaging with you. So it's not a one-way conversation. There's a dialogue. Yep.
Correct. So conversation is dialogue. They might say, nah, I don't ever really pitch. I don't ever have to do that. Okay, so out of curiosity, what do you do? I'm a business owner. Okay. And what kind of business owner are you? At that point, they generally say, I think I need you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's about customizing. It's not the way I'd like to think of a pitch. And you spoke about it this morning. Your framework has got 7 sort of steps. Maybe an analogy could be, if somebody's done your course, for example, they know what those 7 steps are.
Yeah.
And it's almost like having separate Lego pieces. And so those Lego pieces there. There's the best way of organizing those Lego pieces. But also, if you're very familiar with each of those pieces, you can pick and choose which ones you use and how you use them. So the more comfortable you get with it. And I think that's a mistake. We'll get onto that it's a mistake that people make is they do it once and then they never use it and they forget about it. Whereas actually this is something, particularly as a business owner, you want to master what those pieces are.
Yep.
And then you can draw on them at any time without having to think. So you can still be present and engage in a conversation, not suddenly like shut off, blip, blip, and just say it without being aware of the person's reactions.
Yeah.
Would that be a fair statement?
100%. And I think, it's an interesting balance because and this is generally speaking, business owners are good at what they do, right?
Yeah.
So if I had to ask a business owner, are you good at what you do? Generally, they would say yes. Like no one's ever said to me, I'm a really awful popcorn maker or a really awful builder or a really awful accountant. So are you good at what you do? Yes. Do you come across as the confident and competent expert that you are? And often that's a no.
Yeah, I mean, there are people that come to mind. I mean, I'm looking at Maddie, who's here helping us in the studio. We had a classic example of this on one of our momentum calls the other morning, where this guy is a brilliant, brilliant builder. He's really passionate about what he does. He's actually, if we had to describe him, hey, Maddie, he's an artist. He is phenomenal at what he does, but he's not able to yet, guess who's we're referring to you, able to clearly articulate in a competent way that builds confidence. So as you get to know him, you would definitely engage him. But he's at a disadvantage if you bumped into him socially because he hasn't got those tools. He hasn't got himself familiar with those tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I loved what you did there, unconsciously. ABC, articulate to build confidence.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Okay. So we did digress a little there, Sam. So let's get back on track, right? So we go
Little sisters, I tell you what, like
brothers, I tell you.
yeah.
So let's go back on track as you go. They're really good at what they do. They're not good at articulating it.
Yep.
But they are experts in their space.
Yes.
Yes. So as a business owner, if this is you going, I'm good at what I do, but I'm really bad at articulating it, take a step back for a moment. Stop questioning yourself. Think about the things that you're dealing with every day. Think about the questions that your clients are asking. How are you answering those questions? Start becoming really mindful of the verbiage, the actual words that you're using when you are engaging with your customers.
Yeah.
These are the words we want to use when we're pitching. Why? Because generally the people we're pitching to are the people who we want or who could potentially be our clients. So you still want to be the authentic version of you,
Yeah.
but just with a bit of structure around that authenticity.
I think that's a really important point, right? Because like the temptation nowadays is, I'll just go to ChatGPT and put it in, right? But the problem is like there are certain words that you use that you're comfortable and familiar with all the time. Yep. If all of a sudden you start using big words like, I don't know, granadilla or pomegranate or marmalade, and those aren't words that you use on a regular basis, then when you're trying to have that conversation, there's part of your brain that's going like, fuck, what is that word? Whereas if it's just everyday verbiage, and also I think the point is the language that you use with the people that you do work for is the right language. So yeah, I suppose I've just resaid what you said, but
your way.
Yeah,
it's
my
okay.
way.
It's okay. Yeah. So can I give your listeners a tip?
Sure.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite tips, and it's around the magic of 3. So you'll often hear me say, if you work with me or if you know me, think in 3s. Because again, what happens? Why do we suddenly falter all the way through these weird conversations that suddenly feel awkward when we ask to introduce ourselves? As we go, I'm just going to give, like, I don't even know where to stop. Yeah. Like, so what do you do? I do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Like, is my list ever going to end? Now I'm thinking, now I'm faltering.
Yeah.
And now I just look really, really incompetent. So think in 3s. You only need to think of 3 things. And when you've got those 3 things as a speaker or the person delivering, the business owner, you've got a start and you've got an end. And there's something in the middle. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's easy for you to remember, easy for you to deliver, but most importantly, easy for the other person to absorb. So even there, I use 3s. Easy to remember, easy to deliver, easy to absorb, which means that the person you're speaking to can take that in. At that point, they might go, oh, wow, so you do accounting, you do, HR, and you do operations. You've put them in 3 big chunks. I'd love to learn more about your operations. Okay, now you can start taking a deep dive.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't use a tradie or a building example, but we do slabs, walls, and roofs. Okay, so tell me about the roofs. Again, the roofs, we do chimneys, we do tiles, we do gutters.
Yeah, let me help you.
Let me help you.
But I think as well, actually, and this is more from a business coaching point of view, is it's really important for people to understand what work they want more of. And so we talk about the right work. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going out there and tell people you do everything, then you're going to get if you're a builder, you can build a deck, you can do roofing, you can do walls, you can do a bit of painting, you can do cabinetry, you can do all of these things.
Change a light bulb?
Hopefully not, right? But I mean, you can. But it's turning around and going, what's the right work for you? What's the work you'd like to get more of? What would your business look like if you could only do one type of work? If you could just get more of that work, what would your business look like? And so then niching it down. And a lot of people are scared of niching it down, but you don't have to say, I only do that, but I specialize in or we're really good at 1, 2, 3. And that's the fame again, isn't it?
Yeah. It's actually interesting. I've got a client who's a builder and people go, great, a builder. I need a renovation done. Now, he can do renovations, but he doesn't do renovations.
What does he do?
He only builds from scratch.
Yeah, new homes.
New home builds. Custom builds, right?
Custom builds, yeah.
So yes, he absolutely 100% can do a reno, but he never talks about it because that's not actually where the money sits in his business. Now, there's a knock-on effect on that because I'm not a builder. So I don't really understand all the intricacies of that. So he's a client and he's a friend and he's someone I see regularly. But even I have become educated. So if someone says, I'm looking for someone to do a reno, can Rav do it? My answer is absolutely not. What he can do is a custom build.
Yeah.
So it educates people so that people want to help you. People want to actually help you. They want to refer people to you. They want to do that. But you need to make it super easy.
Yeah, I agree. No, that's good. I love that. And then also 3s are memorable, right? So like confidence, clarity, and certainty. So not only in terms of what you do, but actually having things in 3s gives you an idea around what to talk about.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
100%.
And so you could do 3 things around what pains that people could feel. Mm-hmm. So do you know how, people struggle to get the right work or they're really busy and not making work, really busy and not making good money. They're battling to find good team members and their cash flow is shot. And people are I've got that.
Correct.
And then you can give them the solution.
And the truth is, Sam, I mean, if you look at your own business, those are 3 of probably 30 things that you can help people with, but we need to start them somewhere.
Yeah.
And we don't want people to feel that you're throwing up all over them, basically.
Try not to do it. It's not good for business, man.
Not good for business, yeah.
What's your thought about when people say, I just get so nervous about speaking to people? Like how are you so confident or how do you get better at this? And I think I know the answer, but what would you say to somebody that just goes, I'm really nervous every time somebody asks me what to do? I don't know what to say. I freeze up.
And it's a great question because so many people feel like that. And I swear as we get older, as adults, I think we experience it more. Children are certainly braver than adults these days. So what are the things to think about? The first thing is breathe, really good for life. But to actually just take that breath. If someone has asked you what you do, there's a good chance that they're actually genuinely interested.
Yeah.
I go back to something I mentioned a little while ago. Are you good at what you do? Yes. So you want to come across as the confident and the competent expert that you are. And around that, it's getting comfortable with the words that you use, thinking in 3s, and being mindful. Being mindful every day of the things that you're doing, the conversations you're having, the people that you're connecting with, so that when you're asked the question, you're actually prepared. No one got on a bicycle and went, woo, I can ride a bicycle. I can do the Tour de France. I'm 3 years old. You get on that bike and you fall off a few times and you get some guidance and you get better.
And again, people often say, how did you get so good at what you do? But think about anything that you're good at, you've practiced, right? Mm-hmm. So it is around putting yourself, it's getting, what did you say this morning? All the good things happen when you're uncomfortable. That's where growth happens.
Growth happens in discomfort.
Yeah. Actually, Glenn Carlson it's Glenn Carlson or Daniel Priestley in the book Oversubscribed. There's a little sentence there that says, discomfort precedes victory.
Ooh.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah,
Discomfort
that's good.
precedes victory. And I think if we get too comfortable, our world actually gets smaller. The world's always pushing down, trying to make you a little bit smaller, whereas you've actually got to push out and grow. Mm-hmm. And so there's like opportunities where can you go where you can meet people, and then also looking at environments. If you're in an environment where people aren't business owners and you're not in those environments and often in a regular basis, the chances of getting to practice it is harder. Whereas if you look at joining, whether it's group or going to business networking events, or there's BNI, you get to practice your pitch.
There's so many
every week, or there's Toastmasters, or there's Fresh. There's
so many. You've got Connect and Collaborate. You've got events like the Brewers Lunch. You've got BNI, Business Network International. Yeah. You've got look at your local clubs. You've got Rotary. You've got
True.
if you look at the builders, you've got Master Builders. I'm sure they do events.
Yeah.
So anything that's industry related and or non-industry related, where your audience is hanging out, where do you find Meetup? You can Google stuff on Eventbrite, literally, like looking for a small business networking event. There'll be something.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I think if you put yourself in an environment where people are open to that, you're setting yourself up for success. So there's a little bit of pre-planning on this. Yep. You can just go out and wing it. But if you find and think, okay, where could I go where I could try this out in a safe environment, there's a good opportunity. But even sometimes friends of friends.
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I mean, I run an academy called the Perfect Pitch Academy.
Actually, let's talk a bit about that, because that is a great example.
Yes. Yeah. So the Perfect Pitch Academy was born as a result of my own clients requesting it. When I started, I just ran a 4-hour course, 1 hour a day for 4 days. That's where the business started. I kid you not. I think back to it now, I'm like, wow, who knew it would grow such long, beautiful legs?
Well, I mean, actually, when you were running that's when Ben started working with me, and part of his training was to go and do that course, because I wanted him to be able to clearly articulate what it is that we did with confidence, clarity, and certainty. And he did that course and raved about it. So do you still run that?
So I run it in a very different way now. So what we generally do now is I bring folks into the actual academy, and I have a couple of sessions a week where everyone rolls in. It's online. I'm really fortunate. I've got clients locally, nationally, and globally now on that academy. So everyone rolls and they go, this is the pitch that I'm working on. And they go, blah-de-blah, fish paste. They give their pitch. I then give them feedback. They then get feedback from everybody else in the room, but it's a really safe space.
Yes.
So some of that feedback could be, hey, I have no idea what you actually do. That's really powerful feedback, because you don't want to find you in a networking event and everyone goes, he's a really nice guy, haven't got a cooking clue what he does, but he's a sweet guy. So that could be feedback.
Yeah.
Other feedback could be, I felt that you spoke really, really quickly. So again, we look at Australia, which is full of immigrants, right? I mean, we're immigrants.
True story.
True story. You sit in a room and there could be 6 or 7 nationalities in that room. So as South Africans, we speaking, a foreigner might go, gosh, that was like really fast. Like I couldn't pick up a single word.
I'm going to digress.
Yes.
Okay. So I can't say the word because...
Oh, you're not going to go there.
Yeah, I am.
He's going to go there, Maddie.
Okay, so you say the word.
I'm not going there.
No, say the word. Come on.
It's rude.
No, it's not a rude word. No, a person that starts a business.
Entrepreneur.
Maddie, give her a score out of 10. Like, just hold up your hand and we'll give it. Say it again.
Entrepreneur.
Okay, that's a 6 from Maddie. Entrepreneur.
It's like a 2, mate.
That's 3.
Entrepreneur. How do you say it, Maddie?
Entrepreneur.
These South Africans, you cannot take them anywhere. Anywho, we digressed. I've got to bring him back. So in the academy, oh my God, in the academy, this is great. In the academy, you get feedback, powerful feedback in a safe environment, which means that when you actually hit the road, you've got that thing that we want, that thing called confidence, because you know exactly what you're saying, how you're saying it, when you're saying it, what your objective is. Because sometimes I'll go, that's a great pitch, but what are you wanting at the end of it?
Yeah. Again, start with the end in mind, right? A good old Stephen Covey saying is what does a good outcome look like?
Yeah.
Can I change gears a little bit here?
Let's change gears.
So again, just very quickly, like confidence comes from practicing. And sometimes the other thing from confidence is if you can look back at all the things that you've overcome and challenges you've overcome, that's also a really good starting point from confidence. But I do think there are times where people go back to school or where they had to stand up in front of the class and give a speech and then they're frozen up or you know, somebody's laughed or teased them or whatever and they've just gone, stuff this, I'm out. Now, one of the things that you do, and I could never understand this, right? I thought I spoke quite well. And then in South Africa, you started your speaking career. And next thing you're on all these stages and getting asked to present. And I'm like, what about me? and then thank you for pushing me. I actually came and did your professional speakers course. And I think at the end of day one, I came up to you and went, Sarah, like, why didn't you teach me this shit before back in South Africa? But I think to be fair, I think I was a little bit arrogant that I thought I knew more than my little sister. So I'll give credit when credit's due. But one of the things that I found doing that course was there's actually a lot, you know, people think speaking is just standing up and saying a speech. And that's maybe level one is having that confidence. You know, people grab onto that lectern with both their hands, you know, white knuckles, and then they read their speech. Or if we're even more unlucky, they just read off the speech that they've typed up in PowerPoint up on the slides, and it's a freaking disaster. And then they go, oh, nobody liked it. And it's like, yeah, because it was really bad. So let's just talk about speaking, because I believe that speaking is a magnifier. If you're really good, let's say let's just use builder again as an example. If you're a really good builder, and you're really good at visualizing stuff and bringing plans to life, that's good, right? That 1 + 1 now equals 3. But if you are able to clearly articulate what it is that you do, or you have the opportunity to speak, whether it's in front of 2 people, a couple, or you get invited to speak at an event, if you can articulate it and do it with confidence, straight away, it's like, never mind 1 + 1 + 1, it's now you're at 10. So in terms of speaking, there's a couple of things or tricks of the trade that help people achieve that level of confidence. What would you say those are, and where would somebody start? Like if they got asked to speak at an event, like you always say yes. Talk to me a bit about that.
Okay, so the first thing is to always say yes, because you're never going to be perfect. I mean, I digress. I look back to my very first speaking engagement and I'm like, oh my golly, they paid me for that. They paid me like a lot of money for that. But I had to start somewhere. So it's around really developing the craft and developing the skill, and not being afraid to do that. If we go back to the builder, the first house that they built, you know, when they were a kid with sticks, it probably wasn't a livable house. But look at the home you're building today, it's absolutely magnificent. And it's a skill that you've developed. So it's the same thing. We pitch and we present and we speak. It's the same thing. It's developing those skills. I think there's so many tips and tricks that one can really give. But gosh, where to start? I should probably ask you, what do you think was the main thing that stood out for you? And I can take a deep dive into that.
Oh, look, I think there's a couple of things where we say don't do. So maybe go there.
I want to go to the don'ts. Okay.
So, like for example, a mistake people make is they write out their whole speech word for word.
Okay, let's go there. Let's go there.
So, what are some of the things don't do? Let's do that.
Let's go there. So, you do not want to sit and write out your speech word for word, because as you're writing, you're like, oh, that is a remarkable word. I'm going to put that word, and that is just fantastic. And then, of course, you're delivering the thing. Now you're like, oh, darn, where's that word again? We're totally disengaging from the audience. So what's interesting, my personality, for those who know me well, is I document everything. Yet the only document I do not have is of a single speech that I've given. I do not have it written down word for word. Why? Because I want to make sure that I come across as the confident and competent expert I am, number one. And the second part of that is authenticity.
Yeah.
So when we are sharing those stories, and Sam, you've seen me deliver probably the same presentation I've given today, probably 5 or 6 or 7 times, it's never exactly the same. My room changes, the audience changes, the messaging changes, stuff happens in that room.
Yeah.
And you want to really be open to being authentic. So that's easier said than done. So let's look at how do we allow space for there to be authenticity but still have a framework.
Yes.
So frameworks and processes. Again, I'm a free spirit, but I still go back to frameworks and processes, and I share and I teach that as well. So as an example, in its most basic form, you want an opening, you want a body, and you want a close.
Yep.
And this is something we're familiar with because as kids we grew up with stories. Once upon a time, bang, we go into the story, which is the body, and something happened, happily ever after. That's the end.
Yeah.
So you want to have a structure. Within that structure, what do we want to achieve in each of those? So for the opening, we want to create engagement immediately. Now, if we're talking just to a couple, creating that engagement may be around a couple of key questions so that we establish, exactly, what kind of home are you looking for?
Yeah.
Are we wanting to build a villa of 25 bedrooms, or are we looking for an apartment of 2?
Yeah.
So we're asking those questions so we know exactly what we're looking at. As we're going through those questions, a couple of questions, getting their engagement and their involvement in that conversation, you would then go into the body, or let's say the nuts and bolts of that actual presentation.
Yeah.
Now that we know who our audience is and what they want, we tailor that.
Yeah.
So there's a structure that you would actually use, and there's a structure that I actually teach, so you know exactly where you're going with it. When you've got that structure, you're not going on and on and on and digressing into 25 directions.
Yeah.
Your end, what is your call to action? People need to be guided.
As to what the next step is.
As to what, and that could be if you're keen to learn more, or if this is something that you feel resonates with you, let's take the conversation to the next step.
Yeah.
Or that thing I just told you about, and it could be a special deal, let's say. We've got this whole great deal. There is an expiration date on that.
So actually, Andrew Griffiths, I did one of his speaker boot camps before I did yours, but one of the things that he spoke about that I liked was how do you want people to feel, and what do you want people to do afterwards? So you almost start with the end in mind and then build the presentation that way. So it goes both ways. But again, what I found with what I liked about you, and we won't be able to do it here today, but it was more around you also had structure in terms of where you move. Like this is for on a stage, so like a keynote presentation. But just by where you stand on the stage is the clue as to what you're going to talk about.
Correct.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like no need for notes anymore. Like you'd design your presentation, so you work out what are the key points you're going to cover, and then you work out where you're going to stand on the stage. And basically all you got to remember is where you got to walk to. Mm-hmm. And then where you're standing on that stage is your cue as to what to do next.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I use is a system under movement called MAN, the MAN method. And in the MAN method, what do we look at? So the M stands for stage mapping. So you actually map out your stage. So exactly that. It's not every single part of that stage or every part of your presentation has a place and a space on that stage.
Yeah.
Which means that you're not standing dead still like a, doe in lights going, everything's on me. You're not having to stand behind the lectern with your notes because you don't need them anymore, because there's a place and a space for everything. So that's your mapping. The second thing we talk about is anchoring. So anchoring is where you've actually got certain things that happen at certain points on the stage. So even in the 3-day Power on the Platform presentation masterclass,
which is what I did.
On day 3, I could still point to a point on the stage. And because there was such a strong story and anchor at that point, everybody knew exactly what I was talking about. So even as we're sitting here now, you're probably thinking, oh, that was where the Andy thing happened, or the Alex thing happened. Yeah. And then the third part of the MAN is the N, which is around navigating. So how do you get from point A to point B to point C?
Yeah.
Because again, you don't want to be like walking on the stage like a snail, sort of like crawling to where you want to go.
Just walking aimlessly up and down the stage.
Or walking aimlessly up and down the stage.
Okay, so
yeah.
Sorry, so just to make sure everybody's still with us, right? This is like high level, next level stagecraft that can be taught very, very quickly. Okay, so let's just quickly go one more mistake that you see people make from a novice speaker that's been invited to speak. So one, do not write out your speech word for word. Have just a couple of key points that you want to make and know where they sit.
Yep.
What would be the second?
The second point is...
Second one was have some questions where you can ask the audience, even if they're rhetorical questions, because then you've got engagement.
Correct.
Okay, what would be the third?
Okay, the third one would be...
Threes.
In threes. You see, look at that. You learn fast. The third thing, there's so many. The third thing I would say is... I'm going to go back to the opening, because if we mess up the opening, we mess up everything.
Yeah, true.
The opening, and it's something I've witnessed a lot through my own speaking journey with many, even professional speakers, but particularly non-professional speakers, is they have a tendency to get on stage and the first 5 minutes is all about me.
Yeah.
So
trying to build credibility or authority.
Trying to build your cred, right?
Yeah.
So I've done this, I've done that, I've achieved this, me. Okay, and it's just a lot of me. By this stage, the audience is going, I don't want to know about you. I want to know about me. Okay?
What are you going to do for me?
What are you going to do for me today?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I teach, one of the things I do, one of the things I've done forever is having a very simple thing like a speaker bio. A speaker intro. So the master of ceremonies or the host actually does your introduction. So, hey, next up on stage, we've got Sarah. And I've written this out for them, right?
Yeah.
So they are saying Sarah is a professional speaker. She's been speaking on some of the largest stages alongside some of the greatest speakers on the African and Australian continents for the last 14 years. As a professional speaker, she's walked her walk, she's talked her talk, and today she is going to share the tips, the tricks, and the techniques with you.
That's lots of threes.
Put your hands together for the wonderful Sarah Bauling. I then walk on. All my credibility has been given, and there's more, by the person the audience trusts the most, who is the host and master of ceremonies.
Yeah.
I then walk on and I start off with my questions. Raise your hand if.
Yeah. Yeah, which is an Andy Harrington.
Oh, we love Andy Harrington.
And again, I think that's another important point, right? Is like you've got really good, but you've invested a lot of money and time getting good at it. Like you didn't just wake up as a good speaker. I think we had an advantage. You and I have had an advantage that
Dad was a showman.
Dad was a showman, and Mum had her bit as well.
Oh, yeah.
But we were very much out. As kids, we were always encouraged to be. A lot of times people say kids must be seen but not heard. That wasn't the case with us. We were still expected to eat with a knife and fork and engage engage in adult conversations. But we were included in that. And then I think with our parents' business, like we got used to talking to people and giving instructions. So we did have an advantage around that. But we had the opportunity to speak, and then we did it and got better at it.
Yeah.
Then you were really passionate about it, and then you invested a lot of time and money. I mean, we look back, you and Dad used to sing all the time. Oh, I want to tear up. But, then you went and studied arts, elocution lessons. The rain falls mainly on the plains in Spain. So a lot of what you've done has led you here. You didn't just wake up one morning and be an amazing speaker. No. It's something that people can work on and get better at.
100%. And even from that, where Dad was probably one of my greatest inspirations ever. Oh, this got real deep, real fast. Where Dad was definitely one of my greatest inspirations, is he was the one who kind of nudged it, right?
Yeah.
And I just happened to be at a Success Resources event, and there was just this, random guy that I'd never heard of on stage called Andy Harrington. And I looked at that and I was like, I want to be there. And I give so much credibility to Andy because I've also had the opportunity of engaging with him, and he's a beautiful person to boot.
Yeah.
So there was that opportunity that I took with both hands. And again, Mom and Dad were so supportive of that. So I felt like I really had a team of cheerleaders. I had a mentor, the late Dr. Alex Granger.
Yeah.
And he said, "Do you want a mentor?" And I was like, "Let's think about that for a millisecond." And I said, "Yes."
Yeah.
So I was surrounded by great people, but I opened myself up to being surrounded by those great people. And, Dad would give feedback, honest feedback. And it wasn't always you're the best in the world. It was honest, genuine feedback that I was able to take on board and implement. And I'm grateful for that because I get to now give that back into my own audience as well. That got deep fast.
Yeah. It's a funny actually story when early days, like here in Australia, I was doing a presentation for St. George Bank, sponsored a business series, and it was like over 12 weeks. And Nikki Jerd and Kai were there. And I gave a presentation and I went and chatted to them afterwards. And Nikki said to me, "Would you like some feedback on your presentation?" I was like, "I would love some feedback." And so over those 12 weeks, Nikki would always be there and basically typing up notes. And by the time I'd finished my presentation, by the time I got home, there was this freaking email. And it started off really long, but it was the most amazing feedback. And I mean, Nikki and Kai are both very high level Toastmaster speakers.
Yep.
I don't know if that's the correct term.
Yeah, they're great Toastmasters.
And great Toastmasters and brilliant speakers. Like, Nikki has spoken at a couple of our events, which we've got happening tomorrow. How exciting. And Kai as well. And, when you watch them on stage, it's like watching you on stage. There's this art and the way they engage with people. And so when Nikki offered that to me, it was like amazing. And we laughed about it. We went back and had a look at how I used to present, what my slides were like. Oh my goodness gracious me, to where they are now. And I can attribute a lot of that to having a mentor and a coach, not an official, but having somebody like Nikki that would pick up things. She'd go, have you noticed that you rock forward on your feet when you're a little bit uncertain about something? You said, I have no idea. But having somebody there that's in a supportive role, that's providing constructive feedback.
Yeah.
Or you could say criticism, but it's just observations that you are unaware of or suggestions. And tomorrow is our 21st Massive Action Day, right?
It's ridiculous. It's
ridiculous. So that's 7 years of running these events 3 times a year. But after each event, we sit back and we look at the feedback from the delegates, but also I can't wait to get the feedback from Nikki. She still writes notes. You'll have some suggestions and notes as well, and taking that on board. And part of our preparation that we did last week was actually reading through the notes from the previous one. And that's something that we'll go through tonight before tomorrow. So taking it on board and constantly growing. And I think for people that are listening to this and going, how do I get better as a speaker? I think it's speak, it's do more of it, but then also have somebody that can provide some feedback. And also remember, there's this lovely quote that my friend Dan said the other day, is like the loudest boos come from the cheapest seats. And it's something that I've mentioned before actually on this podcast, but it's like, we never criticize people that are doing, what is it?
We only criticize people who are, it's basically jealousy from above us.
Yeah, people that are doing better than us don't criticize us.
Yes.
Is the way of looking at it. And, if you do get somebody that said, you made a right turkey of yourself. It's like, man, Brene Brown used that, the man in the arena. I'm the man in the arena. You're the man in the arena that's giving it a jolly good go.
Yeah.
And that's where it stands, not with the timid souls that are hiding in the stands. I think it was Theo Roosevelt's quote. I've completely butchered it. But the point is, loudest boos come from the cheapest seats. And if you do get people that say you didn't sound good or whatever the case is, let it be water off a duck's back.
Yeah.
Get somebody that's going to support you,
Well,
and go from there.
I'm going to kind of dive into that a little bit. There's a couple of things that come to mind. Is be mindful of who you're getting advice from.
Yes.
And, even as a Toastmaster, when I was really successful with competitions, as an example, the higher you go in competitions, the more people want to give you advice.
Yes.
And from that side, I was always very mindful of who am I taking advice from.
Yes.
Now, you don't want to say to someone, don't give me advice. I'm just so good, I don't need advice. That is arrogance to the nth degree.
And that's a terrible thing.
It's a terrible thing. So my approach on this, and it all depends. I mean, we've gone from pitching to high-level speaking.
Yeah.
But let's go there because we're there anyway. Is one of the things I would always ask is, would you like feedback? And sometimes people say, I don't want feedback, and that's okay. I'm not going to waste my time giving you feedback if you don't want it.
Yes.
Then some people go, yes, I want feedback. And they go lay it on thick. Give it to me. Give me all the bad. Now, the way that we give feedback is not bad. It is constructive feedback. So not, you spoke too quickly. You spoke too quickly, which meant it was really hard for the audience to absorb it. And the feedback that I'd love to give you is to slow it down, lengthen those pauses, and perhaps be more observant of your audience. So in other words, if you're going to give feedback, make sure it's constructive.
Yeah.
And make sure that it's valuable. Because telling someone how bad they are is not constructive feedback.
Yeah.
The second thing is when someone asks you if you would like feedback, you don't always have to say yes. You don't always have to say yes.
Okay.
Because sometimes I say, do you want feedback? And I think you're the last person I want it back. Or I'm not ready for feedback right now. You walk off stage, someone goes, you want feedback? Not at this moment. I'm just relishing in it, right? If you say, yes, I'd like the feedback, you don't want to get into a war of words.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite lines is, thank you for your feedback. So what that does is it gives me the chance to absorb that feedback from whoever it is, because people generally have a good intention.
Yeah.
I absorb that feedback. Some of it I go, oh, I'm so taking that on board. Some of it I go, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Some of it I go I have no idea what that person meant.
Yeah.
So just by saying thank you for your feedback allows that person to have been heard.
Yeah.
And it gives you time to take on board what you want to take on board.
But this can apply to speaking. This can apply to anything, right?
Anything.
And I think sometimes the people that are giving you the feedback, depending on who they are, will also depend on how seriously you take that feedback. So not all feedback is created equal.
Correct.
Cool. All right. Well, hey, we're almost out of time. Is there any other final thoughts or things that you'd like to put out there, or how can people reach you? Let's do that.
All right. So a couple of things. My final thoughts are we started with pitching.
Yes.
We landed up with presenting.
Yes.
And all of that leads to the final P, which is profiting.
Yes.
In your business. And you get to do that through either pitching or through presenting. Today we've spoken along a massive range of things, but there'll be something in there that resonates. So you may not be able to eat this entire elephant. I asked my daughter, how do you eat an elephant? You know what she said?
Never.
You don't believe it. With a knife and fork, Mom. Brought her up proper, I tell you. We brought her up proper. So the way that we eat this elephant is you may eat it with a knife and fork, but just one bite at a time. So whatever there was in there that resonated, hang on to that and do something with that. In closing, people want to do business with people who are passionate about what they do, whether you're pitching or presenting.
Yeah.
Number one. The second thing is, if I had to ask you the question, are you good at what you do? If your answer is yes, then remember you absolutely can come across as the confident and the competent expert that you are. And my final tip, and this is the same tip I give to every delegate, so this you're getting for free, despite not attending the 3-day, is always say yes.
Yeah.
You've got to grab those opportunities with both hands. We go back to Mom and Dad. There were a million opportunities. We took them. We were encouraged to take them. And it's the same thing that I now apply to my own kids and to my own clients. So how do you reach me? There's a couple of different ways. Depending on whether you want pitching or presenting, I'm going to share my email address because that's probably the best way. We can then figure out where you are, what you need, and how I can help you achieve that. So that's my name, Sarah, S-A-R-A-H, at Sarah Bauling, S-A-R-A-H-B-A-U-L-I-N-G, and I'm sure there'll be a link that the team on Sam's side will put up for you as well.
Awesome. And also, like, there's that opportunity. I subscribe to your newsletter and look forward to getting it. It's one of the few newsletters that I read, but it does get you thinking. So, Sarah, thank you so much. So good to have you here. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow and giving it horns from there. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been an absolute privilege and pleasure.